Good morning.
Good morning.
Happy fall. Whether you are here in person or watching online, it is so good to be with all of you this morning. I'm just going to pause to give everybody a time to just find a seat. That's okay. As we gather this morning, let me share words with you from Jan Richardson's poem, A Blessing Called Sanctuary. You hardly knew how hungry you were to be gathered in, to receive the welcome that invited you entirely. Nothing of you found foreign or strange. Nothing of your life that you were asked to leave behind or carry in silence or shame. Tentative steps became settling in, leaning into the blessing that enfolded you, taking your place in the circle that stunned you with its unimagined grace. You began to breathe again, to move without fear, to speak with abandon the words you carried in your bones that echoed in your being. You learned to sing. But the deal with this blessing is that it will not leave you alone, will not let you linger in safety in stasis. The time will come when this blessing will ask you to leave, not because it has tired of you, but because it desires for you to become the sanctuary you have found, to speak your word into the world, to tell what you have seen with your own eyes, heard with your own ears, known in your own heart, that you are beloved, precious child of God, beautiful to behold, and you are welcome, more than welcome here. Come, my friends, with our hearts open to both the challenges and the possibilities that this new day and this new week bring, with our hearts open to all that inspires, sustains, redeems, and transforms us. Come, let us worship together.
With a mind that holds a plan, with a hand that holds a key, with a heart that holds a dream, love reaches out.
When a family's torn apart, when the street is all you have, when your faith begins to break,
love reaches out. Love reaches out. Love reaches out. Here by your side, bringing you home. Love reaches out. Through the pain your eyes have seen, through the voices in your head, through the war you still endure, love reaches out.
to the man who asks for change, to the mother and the child, to the elder all alone,
love reaches out. Love reaches out. Love reaches out. Here by your side, bringing you home, love reaches out. Let us take this night to strengthen and inspire. Let love and compassion be the source that fuels the fire. If you find yourself in need,
if you fear what lies ahead,
if we forge a path of trust, love reaches out.
where hope replaces hate,
Where wounds begin to heal, where we all will have a home, love reaches out. Love reaches out. Love reaches out. Here by your side, bringing you home, love reaches out. Love reaches out. Love reaches out. Here by your side, bringing you home, love reaches out. Here by your side, bringing you home, love reaches out.
The flaming chalice is the symbol of the Unitarian Universalist tradition, the liberal religious tradition to which this congregation belongs. Will those of you here in person please stand as you were able for our chalice lighting? And if you have a chalice at home, I invite you to light it with us at this time. As we kindle this flame, we recommit ourselves to nurturing the spirits of one another and the common good of the world we share. May the light of this flame be welcoming to all who seek a liberal religious home.
Actually, you may sit for this one. This one is new, but the only words are open your heart. There are 3 repeated melodies, so you can just choose one and sing it over and over, let it settle in, and we'll just bathe ourselves in the harmony. The first one goes like this, and it's very easy to sing, so you can just stay on it for as long as you like. Open my heart, open my heart, open my heart, open my heart, and then it repeats. Open my heart, open my heart, open my heart, open my heart. Y'all are going to be good at this. For lower voices may like this when we begin in the same place, but it goes down. Open my heart, open my heart, open my heart, open my heart. Try that with me. Open my heart, open my heart, open my heart, open my heart. Nicely done. So let's go back to the first one. I'll add in the lower one. And then when I feel like you have that going on, I'm going to layer on a third one. And anyone who wants to join me on that one, we can. And just we'll repeat it until we feel it coming to a rest together. Okay? Here we go. Open my heart, 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 open my heart.
Jean Marie, you're a good choir director. Good morning. I'm Sarah Ford Knorr, one of your worship associates and the president-elect of your board. If you're visiting for the first time this morning, I welcome you especially, and we're glad to have you this morning. Here at the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Raleigh, we are intentionally inclusive. We are liberally religious and actively serving the common good of our shared world. Whoever you are and wherever you are on your own religious journey, you are welcome here with us. If you are visiting us for the first time this morning, I invite you to stop by our welcome stand that's out in the foyer if you haven't already done so. If you fill out a visitor form there, you'll get a name tag, and you can pick up one of our new pamphlets to find out more about UUFR and Unitarian Universalism in general. And UUFR members can pick up one of our new business cards at the welcome stand. If you've ever been talking to family, neighbors, coworkers, friends, and wanted to give them an easy way to find out more about UUFR, it's useful to have one of these cards with you. If you're visiting online, I invite you to fill out our visitor form at www.uufr.org visitor form. And if you do this, you'll start receiving our weekly e-newsletter, which is called The Chalice. I hope everybody will read through your edition of The Chalice that you received by email on Thursday about everything happening here at UUFR. Our in-person social hour this morning will be downstairs in Founders Hall, but I'd like to remind everyone that we are having a town hall this morning immediately after the worship service to hear more about the strategic plan that we will all be voting for, or about at least, in November. So feel free to go downstairs and get a beverage. That actually sounds a little bit more exciting than it is. Feel free to go downstairs and get a cup of coffee or tea. But I encourage you to bring it back here to the sanctuary to hear from our Strategic Planning Committee. And we do also have childcare available for the town hall. So go please pick up your children from their regular meeting places and then take them to the Sunshine Circle Room, which is downstairs in the lower level of Peace Hall. And I now invite you to meet and greet your neighbor. Good morning.
Let's come back together, folks. It is good to hear all that energy out there. Just before the start of the pandemic, Reverend Sasha and I established a new ministry team here at UUFR that has been a great blessing for this congregation. That new team was our lay ministry team. Our lay ministers are trained volunteers who offer emotional and spiritual support to people in our community who are going through difficult times, such as crises, transitions, or loss. And as much as Reverend Sasha and I wish that we could provide personal pastoral support to everyone who needs it, and as much as it is sometimes needed, that's just not possible for two ministers in a congregation of more than 450 people, 450 adults. And so the lay ministers work with the two of us to provide pastoral care to meet the needs of all of us who are part of this community, especially people who have experienced illness, accidents, or life transitions, such as divorce or job loss. If you would like to speak to a lay minister, just let me or Reverend Sasha know, or you can look for a list of our lay ministers on our website and approach them directly. And starting within the next couple of weeks, they're going to be making themselves available after the service just to talk with anybody who would like to chat after the service about something going on in their lives.
We have 5 lay ministers who have committed to serving for this upcoming year. As I say your names, please come forward and accept a candle from Reverend James. Our lay ministers who are with us today are William Smith, Eleanor Goodwin, and Bill Devereaux. And we also have 2 lay ministers who are not able to join us this morning, Rachel Wellens and Oliver Shake.
Reverend Sasha will now kindle our lay minister's flames from our chalice flame. This flame represents the light of hope, warmth, compassion that each of you bring. You may use it whenever you want to create a sacred space with someone you are supporting. We thank our lay ministers for their willingness to serve as lay ministers. They have been called to this important work, to this ministry, by their own hearts and by the needs of our community. And Sasha is now going to ask them to affirm their commitment to this ministry we're going to do this together by answering 3 questions. So I ask you first, do you promise to uphold the values and principles of Unitarian Universalism in your lay ministry? If so, please say, I do.
Do you promise to respect the worth and dignity of every person you encounter in your lay ministry? If so, please say, I do.
Do you promise to honor the confidentiality and boundaries of those you serve in your lay ministry? If so, please say, I do.
Do you promise to care for yourselves and nurture your own spiritual growth, even as you care for others in your lay ministry? If so, please say, I do.
We thank you for these promises and for the generosity of spirit you've offered in making them. We joyfully accept you as lay ministers for this congregation and trust that you will support the members of this community with compassion and with integrity. Amen. Blessed be. May it be so. And now let's give our lay ministers a round of applause. We thank them for their dedication and service, and you may now be seated. It's okay to blow out the flame.
This is the time in our service when we acknowledge some of the joys and the sorrows of our community. And we do this because we believe that a joy shared is a joy made greater, and a sorrow shared is made easier to bear. Anyone is invited to email a joy or sorrow to joysandsorrows@uufr.org before 9 a.m. on Sunday. And anyone is also invited to light a candle before the service, and if they wish, to fill out one of our cards that their joy or sorrow can be shared with the congregation. Yom Kippur begins tonight and continues until tomorrow night. To those of you among us who are Jewish or practicing, may your holiday and fast be meaningful. The autumn equinox was yesterday. To all of the pagans and earth-centered practitioners among us, we wish you a very happy celebration of the changing season. UUFR member May Woods Bell died last Tuesday at the age of 105. She has been a member of UUFR for 60 years, and the UU Fellowship of Rocky Mount, which she helped form for 20 years. Since the two groups met on different days, she attended both faithfully up until shortly before her death. A memorial service will be held later in the year. Congregational Life Coordinator Annie Wallace asks for healing thoughts and prayers for her father, Charles Wallace, who just finished chemo, which went well, only to have a severe heart attack on Thursday. He is stable now and is preparing for heart surgery. Norma Idler, friend of UUFR, has her first great-grandson, Enzo, born Thursday, September 21st. Granddaughter Bria and son are doing well. Doreen Clark and Louis Kapolsky are celebrating their 42nd wedding anniversary this week and 48 years of friendship, and they have never forgotten to bring a towel. As we hold these shared joys and sorrows in our hearts and reflect on the joys and sorrows and fears and hopes of our own lives, let's be together now in stillness and in silence, opening ourselves to that spirit within us and amidst us, called by many names but known to every human heart, that leads us to a fuller, deeper, and richer experience of life. After the silence, we will sing hymn number 1010, We Give Thanks. But now let's be together in stillness and in silence.
we give thanks for this precious day, for all gathered here and those far away, for this time we share with love and care. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day, for all gathered here and those far away, for this time we share with love and care. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day.
Everything we do here at UUFR is only possible because of the generous financial support that so many of us together provide. If you would like to make a contribution this morning, we invite you to bring it forward and place it in one of our 3 offering plates that we have here. If you have mobility challenges, please feel free to just wave your hand and an usher will come to you to collect your contribution. And you can also give using any of the methods up here on our screen. It's now time for our offering. Please be generous, and thank you.
Our reading this morning is from a report that the Unitarian Universalist minister Earl Holt gave at the Unitarian Universalist General Assembly in 2005. Our ambiguity and a tentativeness as Unitarian Universalists in articulating what we are about religiously is presently perhaps our greatest liability and the greatest obstacle to Unitarian Universalism achieving its fulfillment of its potential as an empowering and liberating faith for the 21st century. The fear that any such articulation somehow threatens the integrity or right of conscience of any individual is institutionally disabling and must be overcome by mutual trust and a sense of common purpose. The belief that we are joined together in religious association for more than merely instrumental reasons. In addition to our reading, we have a short video this morning. This clip appeared on the Colbert Report in 2006, less than 6 months after Holt made his report at the UUA General Assembly. Unfortunately, because of copyright restrictions, those of you who are watching this morning on YouTube won't be able to watch this, but we'll be back with you in 1 minute. An AV.
Before I begin my message this morning, let's give all of our musicians one more sign of appreciation for their gift of music to us this morning. I have some exciting news to share. I have written and published a book. Yeah. It's titled A Liberal Religious Path, a short personal introduction to Unitarian Universalism. It is now available on Amazon as a paperback and as an ebook. A limited number of copies are now available for purchase in the UUFR office. Here is what it looks like. I would like to read to you just very briefly from the dedication page. To all the people who have invited me into their lives to serve as their minister. And of course, that includes all of you. It has taken me more than 12 years to write and publish this book. I wrote a first draft in 2011 when I was on sabbatical from my previous congregation. It's amazing how many years it has taken me to finish such a relatively short book. I have used the text for many years for the Introduction to Unitarian Universalism class I have taught both in my previous congregation and for the past 4 years in this congregation, and that I will teach again starting in October. Sign up online if you are interested in attending. And over the years, I've continued to revise the text based on feedback from class participants, mostly making it shorter each time. In past years, each fall, I've printed out the text from my computer and made copies on a copy machine. So some of you, at least those of you who have taken my class, have already read a version of it. I decided to publish it, both because I was tired of printing out copies on the office copying machine, and because I decided I wanted to reach a larger audience. By the way, if you signed up for my class starting in October, you don't need to buy a copy, you'll get a free one. But I hope many of you who aren't signed up for my class might read it as well. I hope people in other Unitarian Universalist congregations might read it too. Of course, my highest hope is that people who have never heard of Unitarian Universalism might read it, decide to attend a Unitarian Universalist congregation for the first time, and live a better life as a result. I believe that Unitarian Universalist congregations have the power to both transform and even save lives. But too often, don't, because too many people have never heard of Unitarian Universalism or didn't understand about it when they did. As of 2019, the largest religious group in the United States has become the nuns, and that's N-O-N-E-S, not N-U-N-S. Nearly 1 in 3 Americans do not identify with any religious tradition, making the nuns slightly more numerous than Roman Catholics and even evangelical Christians. Disillusioned with traditional religion, many of them may be completely satisfied to remain unchurched. But it's likely at least some of them yearn for an experience of spirituality and religion that traverses that middle ground between the rigidity of religious orthodoxy and the emptiness of a completely secular culture. And Unitarian Universalism is a liberal religious tradition that winds its way through that middle ground and might be appealing to more of the nuns if they only knew more about it. But is there anything that makes this book different from the many other books that have already been published about Unitarian Universalism? And there are others out there. From where I stand, Unitarians, Universalists, and then Unitarian Universalists have been undergoing an identity crisis for more than 200 years. That is ongoing today. We as Unitarian Universalists we really struggle to say what binds us together. Is it a shared history? Is it how we arrive at our religious beliefs? Is it the substance of those beliefs? Is it common rituals and worship practices? Is it shared social values? Is it the way we organize our congregations, both the organizational structures we create inside of them and the organizational structures we create between them? Or is it some mix of all of those? And if this is so, what's most important? Of course, there have been countless attempts to say what binds us together. In the 1980s, the Unitarian Universalist Association adopted the 7 principles and the 6 sources, statements describing shared Unitarian Universalist beliefs and values. Curious, how many of you have heard of these before? Okay, most people. Also curious, how many of you have never heard of these? Okay, a good number. There's now an effort to replace the 7 principles and the 6 sources. Delegates to next June's Unitarian Universalist General Assembly, including delegates from this congregation, will vote whether to replace the 7 principles and the 6 sources with completely revised language. How many of you have heard about this effort? Okay, fair number. I am agnostic about the wisdom of this change. I was never a big fan of the 7 principles and the 6 sources as a way of explaining Unitarian Universalism. I don't disagree with any of them, but I just have thought they were a lousy way of explaining who we are. But I don't know whether the language being considered for revision is an improvement, And so I am happy to leave it to others to decide. And one of the reasons I'm not a fan of either the 7 principles or other proposed revisions is because what I have witnessed over the years about both our individual and collective efforts to say what binds us together. We are often unclear. I have witnessed a good number of Unitarian Universalists that are good at explaining what they personally don't believe, but not what they do. And this most likely is because many of us have left behind other religious traditions. And talking about Unitarian Universalism more generally, perhaps out of a fear of not being inclusive of all Unitarian Universalists, there's a tendency to give very vague answers about commonly shared Unitarian Universalist beliefs, especially about more religious topics. We also often fail to describe Unitarian Universalism in a distinct way. Years ago, I was hanging out at a bar on the south side of Chicago with a Roman Catholic sister, a nun, and how we got there was a story for another day. It's amazing where ministry will take you in this life. And I showed her a card that listed the 7 principles. And she said, "I don't disagree with any of those. Does that mean I'm a Unitarian Universalist?" I wasn't sure what to say, and she sensed my discomfort. "Do you have bingo?" she asked. "No," I said. "Then I'm out," she said. We often describe Unitarian Universalism in a way that lacks coherence, how our beliefs and values not only are random hodgepodge, but can hang together, how they relate to and build upon each other. We often describe Unitarian Universalism in a way that is not religious, that makes Unitarian Universalism look more like a philosophy of social ethics, not a religious tradition that deals with the ultimate questions of human existence. And not only are we sometimes mocked in popular culture for our murky, muddled explanations of our shared beliefs and values, but this causes other problems for us too. It causes problems for us in our own lives. In my 23 years of ministry, I've noticed many adult Unitarian Universalists, some who have participated in congregational life for decades, have a shallow, sometimes inaccurate understanding of who we are. It causes problems, especially for our children. In my former congregation, there was a young man who had grown up in the congregation and then gone off to college. In college, he experienced a life crisis. Shortly after this life crisis, he became a conservative, born-again Christian. Why? Because a friend from that tradition offered him answers to some of the difficult questions that he was wrestling with. It wasn't the case that Unitarian Universalism as a tradition didn't offer any answers to these questions. But nobody had ever told him about them. Not his parents, not his Sunday school teachers, nobody. It causes problems in our efforts to reach out to newcomers, not to proselytize, not to try to convert people from one belief system to another, but just to let folks know about us. In the United States, 85% of people visit a congregation for the first time because somebody they know tells them about it. And I mentioned this 2 weeks ago. Do you know how often the average Unitarian Universalist invites somebody to church? About once every 26 years. That's not a made-up number. When I've asked people about this, the most common response I've gotten is, "I just don't know what to say." 2 weeks ago, I talked about the loneliness epidemic. How sad it is that there are probably thousands of people in this country, maybe millions, who might like to be parts of a Unitarian Universalist congregation, but never got the opportunity because one of us got tongue-tied. That's, by the way, why we started providing these cards that were mentioned earlier. Even if you can't figure out what to say, you can hand a card to somebody and say something along the lines of, I've got a feeling you might like this congregation, and here's how you can find out more. You think you could do that? Okay. It hurts our efforts to become more diverse. There's an Episcopal priest and an author named Alice Mann, very big name church consultant. I once brought her into a huge conference in the Seattle area, and it was my job to drive her back to the airport. And I started asking her questions on the way back to the airport, and she was giving really good answers, so I took several wrong turns just so I could keep talking to her. I think she started to catch on after a while. I'm still glad I did it. But Alice, Reverend Mann, talks about the diversity paradox. And this is what she says: congregations that are more diverse theologically tend to be less diverse racially, ethnically, and culturally. And I know this is true from my own experience. When I lived in the Seattle area, sometimes when I was off on a Sunday, I used to sneak off and visited several religiously conservative congregations. In the racial, ethnic, and cultural diversity that I witnessed was much greater than what I observed in any Unitarian Universalist or mainline Protestant congregation that I have ever visited. But why is this? The Reverend Cheryl Walker, a black Unitarian Universalist minister, told me once that many people who identify as racial, ethnic, or cultural minorities are less likely to come to a Unitarian Universalist congregation looking for a social connection. They are more likely to come out of spiritual and religious yearnings. That makes sense to me. As Unitarian Universalists, we can never offer a creedal statement that more conservatively religious congregations offer. But unless we get better at more clearly articulating our shared liberal religious beliefs and values, any visitor to a Unitarian Universalist congregation may just take a look at the bumper stickers in the parking lot and just determine that we are a bunch of Prius driving, NPR listening, latte swilling political liberals, but have no idea what we stand for religiously. And this is why I have written this book. To explain Unitarian Universalism in a way that is clear, distinct, coherent, and religious. I've written it so more of you will have a better understanding not only of the religious tradition that you left behind, but the one that you found here, with the hope that you may come to see this religious tradition as more than the church alumni club, where people who used to go to church someplace else now gather on Sunday mornings. That you'll come to see it as a place that offers the possibility of a path towards a fuller, deeper, richer, more satisfying experience of life. I've written it so that more of you will have a better understanding of our shared beliefs and values that can guide our shared life together. So when we have to make important decisions, like the decisions that we'll make about our strategic plan, that we'll have a better understanding of the tradition in which we stand that can guide us. I've written it so those of you who are parents can have better conversations with your children about the religious tradition in which they are being raised. We have your children for 1 hour a week, and we do our best. But as parents, you are their primary religious educators, and we want to equip you to do the job well. I want to equip you to do the job well. I've written it so newcomers to this congregation will have a better idea about what we're all about, even those who can't attend the class I teach every fall. And so I don't have to keep on sharing UUFR 101 messages on Sunday morning on a regular basis. I've written it so more of you might feel confident in talking about Unitarian Universalism with others and even inviting people you talk to find out more than UUFR. First step, hand them the card, but maybe, just maybe, you could say a little bit more. So I hope many of you will buy a copy. Read it. Let me know what you think. Perhaps pass it along to family members or friends. Perhaps, if you're moved, even leave a positive review on Amazon so it will rise in the rankings. And others will be more likely to see it and read it. But what do I say in this book? When I have stood before you before and talked about how to explain Unitarian Universalism to others, I have emphasized 3 points. Most Unitarian Universalist clergy I know can't name all 7 principles. But I think most of us, it's a dirty secret, don't let anybody else know I told you. But I think most of us can remember 3 points. AV crew, let's look at the first slide. The first point is this: Unitarian Universalism is a liberal religious tradition that looks to many sources for inspiration, including all the world's religions, but Unitarian Universalists believe that individual experience is the best source for our beliefs. The second point is this: Unitarian Universalists believe the 2 purposes of religion are to help us live more fully within this lifetime and to make the world a better place, to make it more compassionate and just. And the third point is this: Unitarian Universalists believe religious community helps us realize both of these purposes, because like most things in life, living more fully and making the world a better place is easier if you don't try to do it all by yourself. These 3 points. And just if you are trying to remember, just remember individual experience, living more fully, making the world a better place, and doing it within religious community. Okay, thank you, AV crew. Let's stop looking at those slides. In the book, I also talk about common Unitarian Universalist understandings of spirituality and religion in general, spiritual experience, spiritual practice, God, and even Jesus. I talk about how Unitarian Universalists understand words like worship and what membership means in a Unitarian Universalist congregation. And I'm not prescriptive of what anybody has to believe as a Unitarian Universalist, but I do try to be descriptive of what many of us do believe. One of the descriptions I sometimes read about Unitarian Universalism that drives me crazy is that we are Christians, Jews, Muslims, Hindus, Buddhists, Taoists, pagans, atheists, and agnostics all worshiping together. I think this is at best misleading. Unlike some others, I believe Unitarian Universalism is more than simply a pluralistic tradition and has a common center that can be described, if only inexactly and imperfectly, while still being respectful for and making room for those within Unitarian Universalism who may exist outside that center's fuzzy boundaries. In this book, I also talk about my own personal, spiritual, and religious journey. In decades past, people came into Unitarian Universalist congregations looking for religious freedom. Because in decades past, there was so much pressure to go to church somewhere. You had to go to church somewhere. So they wanted to go to a church that wouldn't force feed them dogma. So they came to a Unitarian Universalist congregation. Today, people say, nobody cares anymore whether or not I go to church. So they want a church that offers them more than just the freedom to believe whatever they want. They can do that at home. Instead, what they want are some answers. Not the answers, but some answers about what other people have figured out how to believe and how to live. And in this book, I very humbly offer a few. My friends, this congregation's ability to continue to thrive, and we are thriving, the larger Unitarian Universalist movement's ability to even survive, and I think that's in question, depends on our ability to say who we are and to clearly articulate our commonly held beliefs and values. Unless we learn to do so, we are doomed to dwindle to greater insignificance in American religious life. My humble hope is that this book will help contribute to our effort to better understand ourselves and let the world know who we are. So may it be. Amen. And will you please now stand as you are able for our closing hymn. Our closing hymn this morning is number 118, This Little Light of Mine. We're not going to start clapping until the third verse. And remember, friends don't let friends clap on 1 and 3. Let's sing.
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Building up a world, I'm gonna let it shine. Building up a world, I'm gonna let it shine. Building up a world, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
As we end this time of worship together, may we do so with ever more love for one another, with ever more gratitude for this precious gift of life that we share this precious day, with ever more peace in our hearts, and with ever more hope for our own lives in this world we share. Amen.